Hey, a very warm welcome to our Miracle Mondays. Yay, with Modern Miracles Academy. My name is Reverend Lisa Windsor, and I'm so happy that you're here. I'm so happy that you're able to listen to the recording if that's how you're doing this. There's always an invitation on Mondays for people to come and join. And you may be new to A Course in Miracles. You may have just heard about it and just been curious, or you may be a longtime student of the course or a teacher of the course. Everyone's welcome. We're all just here in the perfect place on our journey. There are no accidents. We like to hear that one, right? There are no accidents, but it's true. You are perfectly aligned with where you're meant to be in your journey to awakening, to remembrance. And your presence, whether you are seemingly here in person on the screen or you are listening to the recording, our presence is all connected. We are out of the linear time. We are out of time and space, and we are in this beautiful connection. So thank you for your presence. It is essential. It is essential. Your part is essential in God's plan. And yes, I am talking to you. Just in case you think I'm talking to someone else, I am talking to you. Your part is essential in God's plan for our awakening. And you think it's honestly, I think at the end of the day, I don't think it's ever about the people that seem to be speaking the most, the loudest out front in the limelight. I think it's honestly those that's just the quiet presence you know hardly even notice that are really bringing us all home in a very efficient way. So let us not judge. Let us not, judge ourselves especially. Like we want to come in and they're further along. I'm whatever, all of that. Ugh, throw it out the window. Throw it out the window. I always sometimes say, now I don't think we have, not too many of us, but you might see on our calls that some of us have Reverend as a title in our name. Now, Modern Miracles Academy, we train spiritual ministers, and so some of them become ordained if they choose to. And I just want you to know there is no hierarchies going on here. It is a symbol. One day I asked Jesus, why Reverend? Why do I have this? And he said, it is simply your reverence for God. It is just your reverence. I thought, yeah, I have a lot of reverence for God. I have a lot of reverence. And so I can hold that. But please, we are all on we are in one circle. We are on one equal level here. We are all playing our essential part. Everyone is playing their essential part in this awakening. Okay. Yes. So let's do a little prayer. I'm going to invite you to rest your eyes closed if you can, if it's safe to do so, and just draw your attention inward. Take a deep breath. Settle in. You are so welcome here. This is a loving and safe space for us to join. You can let go of defenses and melt into your chair and actually relax a little. You don't need to know anything. You don't need to understand anything. You can relax. You are perfect as you are. You are perfect. And we are waking up to the remembrance of our perfection as God created us. Okay, so don't worry about the idea of being a perfect person. We are not those people. We are spirit, and He created us perfect. There is nothing to fear. That can never change. So just rest in any weight on your shoulders. Let it lift to the light within you. You don't have to carry the burden of this life of life on earth, of the responsibilities of personhood on your own anymore. You are actually coming into a space where you are meant to feel held. Let God hold you, embrace you, envelop you with his love. Let him cradle you in his arms. Are we willing and courageous enough to rest in him right now? Take another deep breath. And we do not walk alone. We have these beautiful reflections of our mighty companions when we come together. And we also acknowledge the Holy Spirit and Jesus as our guides and teachers. They are with us now in mind, and we will step back in mind and ask them to come to the forefront of our awareness and shine the light so that we may see our next most peaceful step. They lead, and we learn to listen and follow. Again, we are so taken care of. We're cared for. Mm-hmm. So when we come into these spaces together, please receive the spiritual nourishment that is yours, God's gifts to us, his peace, his love, his light, his eternal blessing upon us. Yes, claim it now. We do not have to earn God's love. We have it already, no matter what. There is nothing that blocks his love. He only sees our perfection. And so we journey together. Again, so blessed for these beautiful reflections that we are not alone, that we walk together home to heaven, home to the remembrance. When we feel ready, we can allow our eyes to gently open and just hold steady in this connection and this prayer as we continue on. Okay. Yes. Beautiful. So I had some guidance come in a few weeks ago, and Jesus and the Holy Spirit were letting me know that there were going to be a lot of joy projects coming up in the new year. And I love that because in the last year, I have spent so much time and focus laying the foundation for Modern Miracles Academy. So there's lots of courses and programs ready to go for the new year. And it's been an awesome year, very focused, very clear assignments, and they are coming to completion. It's amazing. I'm celebrating, by the way. I'm going to be celebrating all that got accomplished. But I am ready for some joy projects. Please bring it just some, something fresh and new. And so I had this thought today where I thought, my Mondays, love my Mondays. I love my Mondays. But I think I need to bring a little more sparkle, a little more joy going on. Like everything needs to have some level of joy going on. So, um, I have felt today that I'm only going to cover one section in the text because we're kind of journeying through the text of A Course in Miracles, which is amazing. It's very, very rich. But I want to kind of mix it up a little bit. So I'm going to bring in the text and then I'm going to bring in a little bit of experiential learning around what I'm talking about. So it lands deeply in you so that you could go away going, oh, okay, I kind of get that. I kind of get that's the hope anyway, that we kind of get it on a more cellular level, on a more deeper integrated level. Okay. So we'll see how it goes. We're in the sandbox. We're playing tonight. Okay. And yes, the other thing is that if you're interested in like coming to our Miracle Mondays, make sure that you check the website under events. The schedule is there because, for example, next week we're having a holiday break and there's no call. So just check the event schedule and make sure that you're kind of up to date. Most Mondays are on, to be honest. There's very few throughout the year that we're not here, but next Monday will be one of them. Okay. Yes. Okay. So let's start with the text. Um, we'll see what Jesus has in store for us, okay? So, and when I say that, in A Course in Miracles, Jesus and the Holy Spirit are our inner teachers. Now, to be honest, I didn't refer to Jesus for the first 3 years I studied the course because I didn't know that guy. I'm not even kidding. I didn't have that religious upbringing. I didn't know Jesus. So I would always talk to the Holy Spirit. I was always just Holy Spirit. And then eventually I realized, oh boy, this course is not going anywhere. And I think that it's time for me to stop ignoring one of the main symbols of our inner teachers. And so I started on my relationship with Jesus. And I do feel in a lot of ways that when I'm learning the text, for example, that this is him kind of like coming through and speaking to us. Like he's the author of the book. And so you might hear me say, Jesus is coming through to share with us. But it's the Holy Spirit, it's our inner guidance, it's our higher self. You guys, this is a universal curriculum. This is a universal curriculum. Ultimately, God is love. Jesus and the Holy Spirit are love. That's what they are. Okay. So one of the things I've learned along the way is do not let words delay you on the journey home to that love. Okay. So if there's a word, something that we're using that doesn't resonate, just lift it up to the light and you can always replace it with the word love, with spirit, with God, with my guide. All of that is totally workable. And I assure you that if you stick with it long enough, all the judgment and all the meaning that you've ever had on it will probably just melt right away and you'll be just happy to use whatever words are there. One day, Holy Spirit said, I don't care if you call me pancake. He doesn't care about the name, right? So we'll go with Jesus, but again, don't let that delay you, okay? So the section we're on is in chapter 3, and we use the Foundation for Inner Peace version. They're the publishers of this version of the course. And the section is called Section 3, Perception versus Knowledge. As an aside, I notice how often the word know and knowing and the word knowledge are in this section. In fact, know and knowing is 20 times in this 2 pages, right? And knowledge is 15 times.
Wow.
That might be something you notice after, because I always invite you afterwards, go back and read the section, right? Go back to chapter 3, section 3, and read the section. Just notice how much he's really bringing in knowledge. And so I'm just going to start with the first line, which kind of connects well to that when he says, we have been emphasizing perception and have said very little about knowledge as yet. Well, he's about to give us some knowledge, right? He's about to bring that in. And he says something really important here. He says, this is because perception must be straightened out before you can know anything. Perception has to be straightened out in the mind before we can know. He says, to know is to be certain. Uncertainty means that you do not know. I love the word certainty in A Course in Miracles. It is associated with God. There is no certainty in the world. I'm telling you, there is no certainty in the world. Certainty is with God. Okay, so that's actually helpful. Knowledge is with God as well, right? Knowledge is with God. Perception is with the world. These are kind of some of the distinguishing factors. He says knowledge is power. That's so funny. We hear that knowledge is power, right? Because it is certain, and certainty is strength. Okay, so knowledge is power because it is certain. He says perception is temporary. As an attribute of the belief in space and time, it is subject to either fear or love. Okay, so perception is subject to the two thought systems, fear or love. We know this. Misperceptions produce fear. That's the ego thought system. And true perceptions foster love. That's the Holy Spirit's thought system. But neither brings certainty because all perception varies. Okay, so interesting, right? That right-mindedness and wrong-mindedness is still on the level of perception. True perception, false perception, still on the level of perception. It's not on the level of knowledge where God is. It is on the level of it's really, we're working on the level of the ego, ultimately, right? We're working on the level of the split mind to go between the ego and the Holy Spirit. This is kind of the journey. We have to meet us where we think we are, and that is in an ego identity, okay? So he says, the reason, because perception varies, that's why it's not knowledge. True perception is the basis for knowledge. Okay, so this is important. We've got false perception, that's the ego's perception. We have true perception, which is the Holy Spirit. It's not knowledge, it's not certainty, but it is the basis for knowledge. It is the basis. We need the true perception as the basis for knowledge to come in, okay? And it tells us that knowing or knowledge is an affirmation of truth, and it's beyond all perception. Okay, knowledge is beyond all perception. He's going to tell us about our difficulties. He says all your difficulties stem from the fact that you do not recognize yourself, your brother, or God. To recognize means to know again, implying that you knew before, which I kind of love because I'm like, this is a remembrance. We think we don't know who we are. We don't know who God is. Yes, we do. We've known before, we will know again. Okay, we've known before, we will know again. He tells us that you can see in many ways because perception involves interpretation. And you know all the angles that we can see from through perception. You see all kinds of different ways because it involves interpretation. How many ways can someone interpret something? Many, many ways. But interpretation means that it is not whole or consistent. The miracle, being a way of perceiving, is not knowledge. You guys, A Course in Miracles is healing our perception. It is not knowledge. It is the basis for knowledge. Okay? The journey through the Course is healing our perception, and it is the basis for knowledge. It is the basis for that to happen, that for the knowledge to come back into our awareness. So the miracle is the right answer to a question. But he says, you do not question when you know. And again, when we know, we are certain. And so there's no question. But I love this line. He says, questioning illusions is the first step in undoing them. Full stop. Questioning illusions is the first step in undoing them. The miracle or the right answer then corrects them. We have to question the illusion, and then we can call in the miracle for correction. The other thing that he's talking about in this section is he's talking about how perception is reliant on time. Okay, so he says how you perceive at any given time determines what you do, and actions must occur in time. But knowledge is timeless, okay? Because certainty is not questionable. You know when you have ceased to ask questions, meaning you have knowledge, have knowledge when you have ceased to ask questions, because there's no questions in certainty, right? There's no questions in absolute certainty, okay? So again, we're kind of working on the basis of, in this course, the miracle is this shift from false perception to true perception. True perception is the basis for knowledge, okay? He tells us that true vision is the natural perception of spiritual sight, but it is still a correction rather than a fact, okay? Because it's perception. There's no facts in perception. There is still on a level, they are still interpretations. Spiritual sight is symbolic and therefore not a device for knowing, okay? It's not a device for knowing, but it is the basis. It's what needs to happen. But we come back to the beginning. He says, your perception must be straightened out before you can know anything. Okay, so we need spiritual sight and we need to shift into true perception. He says that spiritual sight is a means of right perception, which brings it into the proper domain of the miracle. So the miracles is the true perception. It is the shift from fear to love. And then when we receive the miracle, we're looking through the lens of true perception. We're looking through the Holy Spirit's sight. Again, he says, certainty is always of God. Isn't that interesting? Like, I just want to say something about that. Because I think sometimes we feel certain about things, right? Like we feel certainty. We feel a level of certainty about things. But he's telling us that certainty is always of God. And he's even saying that even the truest perception, right, that comes from spirit, he's like, it doesn't end there. Like, you're not lifted into heaven. You still have to come to knowledge. You can't stay in perception and be awake, right? You have to ultimately go to knowledge. So even that isn't fully certain. And why is that? If you know, when you have like a spiritual vision, or like if even when you have a spiritual vision, the reason that it's not certain is because it doesn't last, right? That's how we know it's perceptual, right? It's not fact. Knowledge is eternal and lasts. It's unchanging, okay? So you can see that in this perceptual experience we're having, Jesus is like, I'm going to work with your perceptions from the false perceptions. We're going to lift you into true perception, and then that's the basis for knowledge to come back for the full healing and the remembrance. He tells us when you love someone, you have perceived him as he is, and this makes it possible for you to know him. So you have to first perceive him as he is, and you do that when you love him through the lens of love. That makes it possible for you to know him. That's where knowledge comes in. That's where we can experience the Christ. That's where we can know truly. He says, until you first perceive him as he is, you cannot know him. What's that? What he's saying to us is he's saying, we're ultimately going for the knowledge of God, knowing the remembrance, the recognition of who we are, who our brother is, who God is. But we cannot get there. We can't jump from false perception to knowledge. It's not going to work. The healing is from false perception to true perception to knowledge. That's the progression, okay? He tells us that knowledge comes from the altar within and is timeless because it is certain. To perceive the truth is not the same as to know it. To perceive the truth is not the same as to know it. And I love that he's saying knowledge comes from the altar within. I had this sense today. He's like, knowledge is always here. God is always here. That certainty is always here. It's within you. You can't lose who you are. You can't lose the knowledge of who you are and who your brother is and who God is. It's here. It's the inner altar where it is, right? But we have to uncover it. We have to go through the experience of letting go of our addiction to perceiving, right? In this whole experience, we became, instead of creators, we became perceivers of everything. And now we have to use that perceptual ability to come back to knowledge, right? Jesus has a plan for us to change our minds. He tells us that right perception is necessary before God can communicate directly to his altars, right? That's which he established in his sons. There he can communicate his certainty, and his knowledge will bring peace without question. Okay, saying the same thing. Right perception is necessary before we can receive knowledge, before God can communicate directly with us. And here's a little history. Knowledge preceded both perception and time and will ultimately replace them. And that goes back to the recognition. You know who you were, you knew who you were, you knew who your brother was, you knew God, and you will know again. You will know again. Okay, we started with knowledge. It preceded all this idea of perception and time, and it will replace perception. Knowledge will ultimately replace perception. Perception can and must be stabilized, but knowledge is stable. So the journey through the course is to stabilize perception. That's our journey. And true perception is stable, and thus it is the basis for knowledge. If you attack error in another, you will hurt yourself. You cannot know your brother when you attack him. Perceive him correctly so that you can know him. God knows his children with perfect certainty. He created them by knowing them. He recognizes them perfectly. When they do not recognize each other, they do not recognize him. And that's important. When we do not see the truth in each other, we do not remember the truth of God, right? So this is a very important calling to shift and heal our perception. And you can see that, the Course often talks about, God is perfect love. And then he brings in things like eternity. He brings in things like knowledge. He brings in things like certainty that all are in that domain of that perfect love, that perfect oneness, that experience of God. And then he's also talking about our experience is really a perceptual experience, and the perception has to be sorted out before we can return to knowledge. Right? It's like there's too big of a gap. You can't go from false misperceptions to knowledge. You have to move through the miracle to the true perception, and then we can know again. We can recognize. Okay. So that's our section, and I think it's very powerful, and I totally encourage you to read it slowly and just notice all the beautiful contrast he uses between knowledge and perception and to know. I love it when he's saying that he's just talking so often about us, like that you don't know or you will know, and it's like he's talking about knowledge. It's so beautiful. So here is an experiential practice, trying to kind of bring us into the experience of what he's meaning here, okay? And I thought too, since it's the holiday season, that I kind of bring that in a little bit, okay? So we know that many things can arise in our minds and in our experiences during the holidays, right? However you might celebrate, whatever you might be celebrating, memories can come up, difficult relationships can come up, expectations, disappointments, subtle forms of guilt, pressure, these kinds of things can arise. And sometimes it's not necessarily happening present, but this time brings up past memories from this, okay? These moments can actually become opportunities not to bypass what we feel, but to notice how we're seeing things, okay? We can notice our perception of these things. So we're just going to take a quiet few moments to walk the mind gently from an experience of false perception through true perception and maybe even a little glimpse of knowledge. Okay? So I invite you, if you can, just to rest your eyes closed. And just take a deep breath. Yeah, and just gently allow a recent situation or a past memory to arise. Something maybe around this time of year, or just something unresolved that surfaces. Perhaps it's involving family, or maybe a feeling of loneliness. Just something that you're carrying that feels heavy. It can be seemingly small or big. Just let it come to surface. And just, it should be something that carries a little bit of a charge, a little bit of upset, some resistance or tension, okay? So I want you to just notice the perception, okay? How are you seeing the situation as you're looking at it? What meaning have you given it? Just noticing if there's blame or some guilt or fear or judgment wrapped into it. Really getting in touch with the story you've been told or the one that you are telling yourself. And just notice the perception and get in touch with the fact that this is the level of the mind where misperception is occurring, okay? Where there's false perception. And we know because how we feel. So with some willingness, we're going to invite the Holy Spirit to enter our awareness. I want you to just say quietly in your heart, let me see this through the eyes of love. And now look again with the Holy Spirit through the lens of forgiveness. Just have the willingness to let go of your story. And perhaps the image isn't changing, but you just begin to feel a little bit lighter. That the edges soften and that judgment begins to fade. Just allow the images to be seen symbolically and let them be reinterpreted by the Holy Spirit. Just allowing space for light to enter. And some peace to enter. And just notice if what you see has changed. And this is the process of opening to true perception. This is the opening to the miracle. with some willingness, I'm going to invite you to open to knowledge by letting all of your perception fall away. Very gently, let that story fall away, the images, the memories, the symbols, and let your mind rest in what cannot be seen, but is always known. This place has no opposites, no conflict, no time, no past or future, no fear. There is only the beautiful radiant light. There is certainty here. Eternity is here. You have entered the quiet doorway of knowledge. You bring nothing with you because nothing is needed. And here is where you remember what is true forever. You are not a body. You are free. You are not alone. You are home. And just rest here for a moment. And just allowing the peace of God to be with you as you gently return your awareness to the space. And you can open your eyes when you're ready. Okay, so a little bit of an experience of moving from false perception to opening to true perception and ultimately opening to an experience of knowledge. Here's what I want to tell you guys. This is what came in, and we'll have a little time to share at the end. I always recommend coming on the live calls because there'll be a little time to share. It's an interesting time right now because it's just coming to the end of the year and the new year is upon us. And one of the things that we offer at Modern Miracles Academy, of course, is our Activate 365 Days of Miracles program, which is the journey in community and connection through the workbook of A Course in Miracles. And this is what Jesus says in the introduction. He says, the workbook is divided into two main sections. The first dealing with the undoing of the way you see now, and the second with the acquisition of true perception. Okay, so this is what we're talking about. The undoing of the way we see now, that's the undoing of the misperception. And the acquisition, the second part of the workbook is about the acquisition of true perception. That is incredibly important. That is how we experience true perception, the basis for knowledge. He tells us the purpose of the workbook is to train your mind in a systematic way to a different perception of everyone and everything in the world. The purpose of the workbook is to train your mind in a systematic way. Whose systematic way is it? It is the divine systematic way. It is Jesus and the Holy Spirit guiding us in a systematic way to a different perception of everyone and everything in the world. He's talking about this. It is about our shift in perception. It isn't ultimately about knowledge, but it gives us the basis of knowledge, and then the knowledge is is remembered, right? And knowledge is remembered. That is the point. But A Course in Miracles is calling us to the undoing of misperception and the acquisition of true perception. Okay. And I'm telling you, he does not waste any time in beginning to dismantle and have us start to question the illusions. Remember, he says that in our section. He says you have to, the first step is to question the illusions. I don't even know if he's having us question the illusions or if he's just telling us that that's what we're seeing. The first lesson saying, nothing I see means anything. Nothing I see around me means anything. The second one being, I have given everything I see all the meaning it has for me. I have given it the meaning. And the third one being, I do not understand anything I see. He is going right in directly and saying, you do not understand what you are perceiving. You have to question your perceptions. And he's just poking a hole in all the things that we think are those facts. And he said, there is no facts in perception, only in certainty, only in knowledge. So this is the calling, right? In terms of coming into this devotion to say, I know the pathway, right? The pathway that he's laying out. I know the pathway. It's a healing in mind from false perception to true perception. And remember, once we've hit a space of true perception, it says that God's channels are open and he can communicate with us directly. And that's where knowledge flows. So that's not our part. The knowledge isn't our part. The knowledge will come in when we have stabilized our perception and we're ready. A Course in Miracles is the pathway, systematically each and every day helping us dismantle the ego thought system and acquire our true perception. I've created or made the Activate program because what I've learned along the way is support is necessary in the dismantling of this thought system. And we journey together in this deep shared purpose for healing our minds. And again, our parts are essential. No one's coming to do your part for you. We all have to say eventually some kind of yes to the universal curriculum of awakening. It may be A Course in Miracles, it may be another path, but we all have to take our rightful place in his plan. So my invitation to you is to, if you haven't done your workbook lessons in connection with others, if you're open to doing your workbook lessons starting in the new year and you're feeling some inspiration, there is a huge invitation to come along on the journey. It's such a beautiful supported program. I've made it in a way that it's not too expensive. It's beautiful inroads for people to come and join. You can join me for a discovery session if you're thinking and would like to ask questions about it. But that is really, I think it's just perfect timing because in this time of year, there is a calling for what are you going to do for your spiritual well-being in the new year? What is the plan for your spiritual well-being? We often will plan for all the other things that going into the new year. And I am here to take care of people's spiritual well-being, your spiritual self-care. Okay. Yes. So, I want to thank everyone for your presence tonight. And I'm always here. Our Modern Miracles community, our leadership team is here. Our arms are wide open to you. If you are new, if you have been on this journey for a long time, it does not matter. Support is here as for spiritual seekers and students of A Course in Miracles. Visit our website if you're interested, www.modernmiracles.com. And just thank you. Thank you for your presence and just sending you a beautiful blessing for your day.